Hi, I'm Adam's Downboy, and welcome to the Mother Clucker Guide to the Avalon Exotic Quest Legend Flawless Solo. I've just finished the encounter, the quest, the exotic quest. So this is my approach to finishing it. I think it's something that most people would be able to do. It's something that does, it will take you an hour or more to complete. It requires being able to maintain focus because there's long, boring sections where you're doing little bits of chip damage. But at the end of the day, I'm using my classic approach, which is to stay as far away from the hurty stuff as possible, using cover, using any exploits which are there, using the environment. Not necessarily using any cheeses, but it's just basically staying as safe as possible. Now, I've tried to run this quite a few times. This is only my third successful completion. I've run probably about, I'd say maybe 9 or 10 partial completions where I've been trying out different builds to find out whether they would be suitable for doing the flawless solo run. I've tried some quite aggressive ones, things like the Syntheseps Solar Titan, or maybe a Devour Warlock. I've tried Strand builds, I've tried Liar's Handshake Hunters, and they're all quite good for ad control. They're all quite good for keeping your health up while the ads are around. I found difficulty in doing that and completing the mechanics in this particular exotic quest, which involve shooting symbols to activate them in a row. There's up to 5 symbols you need to shoot in a row in the correct order in order to progress to the next area. And because the ads are continuously spawning, I just had trouble in dividing my time and attention between clearing ads, maintaining my health, and executing the mechanics. So what I finally ended up with is what I refer to now as my Super Mario Void Hunter build, which uses, it's very aggressive use of invisibility. As you'd expect, it's built around a specific armour piece. That's the Graviton Forfeit Helmet, and a range of artifact and armour mods and aspects and fragments from the Void subclass. So I'm going to run you through that, but I will take you through my subclass setup first. So, as I say, this is the Nightstalker subclass. I'm using Mobius Quiver as the super. It does quite nice chunk damage. It doesn't keep me out in the open for too long, and it also means I can then follow up with other weapons to increase their damage. I don't rely on it too much, but it's useful to have, and it's probably more useful than the alternative supers that you have available. I'm using Gambler's Dodge. There's a play loop which I'll explain shortly, but that allows me to regenerate my melee ability. I'm using the melee ability, the Snare Bomb, to create invisibility for myself. That is what I will be using most of the time to get through this. I'll be using a combination, as I say, of mods to maintain my health, but primarily the way that I'm surviving through all the encounters is using invisibility and making that last as long as possible, because obviously if your ads can't see you, then it's much more difficult for them to damage you. I'll say I'm using triple jump. I'm not a hunter main, so I find the third jump useful if I mess up the first 2 to try and recover. And I'm using Vortex Grenade, quite useful for area denial. There are some areas here where the ads do group up quite a lot, in which case it kind of sucks them in and then damages them all. I'm also using the grenade for additional damage against mini bosses and bosses, so it can be quite useful just to add a little bit of extra damage. Now, the aspects that I'm using are Vanishing Step. So when I dodge, I turn invisible. Remember, when I dodge using Gambler's Dodge, I am also recharging my melee if I'm near enemies. I'm using Trapper's Ambush, which is this is the Super Mario element. This means that if I use Quickfall, then as I hit the ground, I will turn invisible. I will weaken my enemies, which is obviously quite useful because it's useful for additional damage if you're trying to clear ads. So that's the center of the build, so it's using that melee ability. Now the fragments I'm using, Echo of Persistence. I want my invisibility to be as long as possible, So this increases it by a couple of seconds. It costs me 10 mobility. So that is the only reason why I have Echo of Dilation. I don't think there's any other fragment, certainly not in Season 20, which grants you additional 10 mobility. The 10 Intellect is useful. I don't use the actual effect of the fragment at all. And then finally, Echo of Instability. For me, primarily in this run through, I'm using that for the additional strength because I want my strength as high as possible. But it also grants volatile rounds on grenade kills. We have volatile flow as one of the seasonal mods this season, and that is very useful. That will go away. So this will be how you would maintain volatile rounds in seasons after season 20. So that is the setup for the subclass. I'm using With a Horde primarily. Why are you flashing, Wishender? I'm using With a Horde primarily for damage on chunkier ads. So that will be kind of yellow bars, orange bars, mini boss, and that's so I can fire that at them and get quite chunky damage, between 35 and 40,000, I think, damage, while I'm safely in cover. So it basically I can stay safe while whatever I've shot that at is taking damage. I will swap that out for Wishender in the final encounter for an exploit that you can use, but also because Wishender does really quite nice chunk damage. It's got a perk called Broadhead, which means it does damage both on the way in and the way out, and it can overpenetrate. So if you've got a crowd of ads in front of you, it can hit multiple ads. But it also it's anti-barrier, which means that what it fires are piercing rounds, which is useful in the very last Brakion encounter. I am using, for most of the encounter, I use Funnel Web, and that's because it's a void weapon, and all of the weapons that I'm using here, bar one, are void weapons because they fit into the kit. This has Subsistence and Frenzy, and it's also this season's Overload weapon. Quite useful. Again, I don't use it at all in this because of the build that I've got and because of the use of mods, but in future seasons this could be quite useful, because if we ever do have an Overload mod again for submachine guns, then it means that things like Minotaurs, when you proc the effect on them, the Overload champion effect, it stops them from that annoying teleportation they do while they're coming towards you. So they will just slowly walk towards you, which just makes them much easier to deal with. At certain points, it's after the... Oh, the other thing to say about Funnel Web is that it's a lightweight frame. Lightweight frames add, I think it's either 20 or 30, I can't remember which, but 20 or 30 to your mobility stat. You can see my mobility there is 77, so that either gets me close to 100 or functionally at 100 for my ability stat. That means that I'm getting my dodge back as fast as possible. But I will swap that out in a couple of the encounters for the Ichlos SMG. This is one that I've crafted, but any arc SMG will do. Basically, you'll be in a section that has a whole load of harpies with arc shields in, so you want something that can break those shields quickly, rather than having to try and force them with a void SMG. You mow them down if you're using an arc version. And if you've got something that's built for ad clear, this obviously has Volt Shot on, which is really good for ad clear, but anything which is good for ad clear will do there. And then finally, in my power weapon slot, I've got Red Herring. I use that in the final encounter against Brakion, the boss. Most of the way through, I'm using Commemoration, and I'm using Commemoration as my primary weapon. This is really good. Again, if you've got a chance to craft one, then this roll with Reconstruction and Killing Tally. Reconstruction will double your magazine passively. It'll either happen while it's stowed or while you're not firing. And Killing Tally basically means that after 3 kills, which is quite easy to get with an LMG, you'll have a 30% damage buff, which you will maintain because Commemoration will refill your magazine when you're not firing, So because you're not putting it away and you're not manually reloading, you will keep that killing tally 30% bonus damage all the way through while you're clearing ads. This is this season's artifact, so nothing much in the first column that I'm using. As I say, the overloaded SMG, if I'd been using my SMG more, probably would be quite useful. I'm using void and grenade mods just to make them cheaper. Critical to this, but well, not critical, very useful, is volatile flow. So when I pick up an orb and power, I will be able to proc volatile rounds. Volatile rounds, because they're piercing, are really useful. There's no barrier champions in this, but there are those annoying Vex Hobgoblins which after a couple of shots can put up that invisibility barrier while they regain their health. If you've got the volatile flow procced, then you can shoot through that. You can use the piercing effect of volatile rounds to pierce that, so you can kill them while they're stationary and not firing back in that invisibility, invulnerability barrier. Very useful. And shatter orbs, again, this season has been incredibly useful because it's the first time, it's not every time, it's only the first time that you break an opponent's shield with a matching energy type. You'll create orbs, and I use orbs quite a lot in the build here. And then this is the reason why you can use your LMG as a primary, is bricks from beyond. So if you're killing powerful combatants, and there's quite a few of them in here, then you've got a chance to generate heavy ammo. And then finally, void weapon channeling. There's a lot of void mods this season in the artifact. It gives you a temporary bonus to damage, always handy. So that's the weapon side of things. You can see I'll mention D2 armor picker. That's how I set up my armor. I wanted 100% resilient, or 100 resilience to get the 30% damage reduction. I wanted 100 strength so that the cooldown on my melee ability, the smoke, was as fast as possible. I wanted my mobility to be as high as it could be, and then I shared out I think it's pretty equally between the other. This is effectively the best I could do with the armor that I've got. But the two priorities that I had were resilience and strength, and then as high mobility as I could get. So this is the exotic armor piece that it's built around. So this is Graviton Forfeit. Essentially, the reason is because when I'm in it, first of all, it does extend the invisibility by another couple of seconds. So I've got as long as possible while I'm invisible as I can. But also it means that while I'm invisible, the melee recharges faster. It starts off, I think it's 400% faster, but it will increase to either 600 or 800% while you're invisible. Will recharge your melee, so it can feel like, with a combination of a few of the other mods, your melee energy can recharge almost instantly as soon as you land, or within a couple of seconds you have your melee energy back. Additionally, again, I use other mods to improve to try and regain health, but it also means that you get 100 reload speed on all your weapons and 100 recovery. So because I'm invisible so much, the recovery stat I have here is not quite so important because of him. I'm invisible. I've effectively got 100 recovery. But the mods I'm using, I don't use my grenade that much, but Ashes to Assets means that I can feed melee kills into super. So there's a couple of places where that can be quite helpful. I'm using Void Siphon. You could use a Void Siphon instead of Ashes to Assets just to get a bigger orb of light, but that just means I'm using Void so much. As I say, I'm using the LMG, which is Void, as my primary. Means I'm generating orbs pretty much continuously, and even though I have Bricks and Beyond, I will be using both Heavy Ammo Finder and Void Scavenger because I'm relying on it, so I want to make sure it's got as much uptime as possible. I don't want to take any chances on ever running out of ammo. And it's also useful in the final encounter where I'll be using the rocket launcher to make sure when I'm killing ads that I have ammo for my rocket launcher as well. I've just noticed I didn't masterwork that. That's annoying because I didn't notice that. Otherwise, I would have had my recovery at 30 naturally. But there we go. What can you do? Right, on my arms, I am using my Void Loader. Majority, I don't think I changed this. No, I definitely don't change this. Majority of the time, I'm using Void weapons, so got Void Loader just makes sense. I'm using my melee and class abilities, so I'm using Focusing Strike so that when I'm causing damage with my melee attack, I'm regenerating my class energy. I'm using melee kickstart, so when I use my melee and I have armor charge, I'm regenerating my melee ability. So, you know, everything's kind of feeding into that. On my chest, I'm using Void Reserves. Again, my LMG. I want to make sure that I've got lots and lots of, as many bullets as possible. The main nasty damage you'll be facing will be the solar sniper rifles from the Vex Hobgoblins and the boss from Brakion, and Void from the Wyverns, which can be absolutely deadly. Wyverns are the biggest threat you'll probably face in here. If you see a Wyvern, then you need to kill that as soon as possible. But also the Torch Hammers that there's Orange Bar Goblins, and obviously the Minotaurs can carry those as well. And the Harpies are firing that kind of continuous beam at you as well, which is Void. So having Void resistance in addition to the 100 resilience just gives you the best chance of surviving that. On my legs, this is the secret source. This is the better already and recuperation. So I'm generating lots of orbs through the various mods that I'm using. Every time I pick up an orb, I get a big chunk of health back, and it starts my health regeneration as well. So in big groups of ads where I could be taking damage, it just means that I've got ways of regenerating my health very quickly. It's almost like having, you know, a Devour Up, but or it feels like having Devour Up, but by using orbs rather than kills. And as I say, I've got the Void Scavenger for the LMG. And then finally, on my cloak, then I am using Utility Kickstart. The same reason as I'm saying before, I want to have my class and my melee up as much as possible. So Utility Kickstart means that I've got armor charge, then it just recharges it gives me a big chunk of the dodge energy back. And Reaper, because I am dodging, I will be dodging a fair bit. I just thought there's nothing else really that I could see that I could really need in the mods available on the class item. So I chose Reaper because I like having lots of orbs, because I'm relying on those, say, for my health regeneration and everything else. So that just fitted. So the gameplay loop that I'm using with this is I am relying on the Trapper's Ambush. That is my primary form of invisibility. I am using that an awful lot in here. I will only ever use the melee. I will only ever use the dodge as my safety net. As I say, the idea would be that if I find myself out of position, that I use that in order to regain my Trapper's Ambush and go invisible in a crisis. There were a couple of times, particularly in the second phase of the boss fight, where I find that really useful. The dodge is pretty much instantaneous, whereas you would have to jump up in the air first in order to get the Trapper's Ambush activated, and I just wanted to activate my invisibility as quickly as possible. So it's there purely for an emergency. So I'm using Void weapons in order to generate orbs. I'm using orbs to regenerate my abilities and also recover my health. So that's effectively the gameplay loop that I'm using. So I've been talking for quite a long time now, I'm aware, so I will get into, well, we can pretend this is me flying in. It's on the EDZ, so hopefully you will have finished I'm not going to take you through. If you haven't done this yet, you'll need to go to the Gulch. There's half a dozen little flashing Vex nodes that you will need to go and pick up. That will then open the location of a cave that's kind of around here. It's kind of quite close to the flooded chasm, the haunted lost sector, but yeah, kind of around there where the cursor is, and that will then take you into, I think you've got to finish it once probably on standard before you can select the legendary. I'll just take you through briefly. Obviously, they are much more aggressive. If you've done this on standard, then you will find that the safe spots that you had previously aren't quite as safe, because Vex will seek you out actively and engage you where you thought you were previously safe. You have got no radar. That can be quite challenging in places, working out where things are coming from. Everything has more health. I would say, even though you've got multiplicity on, so if you're going to try and do this flawlessly, probably solo is the easiest to do, because the enemies scale with the number of people in the fire team. So you know that it's inverted commas. It's at its easiest when you've only got one person in there, and you're not, if you die, then you've got probably no one to blame but yourself. But if you're in the second phase of the Brakion fight and you keep on someone else keeps on dying there, which was one of the pinch points that I had when I was doing this, then after a while that may well start to wear. So it's just probably better for inter-clan relations if you do try and do this solo. Honestly, it's difficult, but it's not. If I've done it, it's obviously not impossible. It's only arc and void shields that I've said. It's got a fixed difficulty, so you will always find the enemies are a fixed light level above you. Even if you go over 1830, you will still face enemies that will be doing more damage than usual to you. And this again can be quite. I don't know. This is probably just for this year. So this is for the Lightfall year that Awoken Favors are active, which means particularly the grenade favors, to being able to regenerate your grenade instantly. The others probably aren't quite so useful, but the grenade is particularly useful to regenerate that quickly. So we will now launch, pretend that this is me going in for the first time, even though we all know it wasn't. I won't commentate all the way through all of this. I will just kind of give you my thoughts as we go, where I think things need a little bit of explanation, or where I'm swapping stuff to explain why I'm swapping to it. So there we go. I won't say wish me luck, because we know I've done it. Right, you should get an idea here about how I use the Super Mario Goomba playstyle. So what I'm looking to do, if you look at the regeneration of my melee ability, I'm looking to make sure that is, throughout this, I'm looking to make sure that is recharged generally before I engage with either the ads or with or try to do the mechanics. So, as you can see here, I'm waiting until I get the melee. It's almost done there. Could have waited maybe a little longer, which is why decide to go and hide again. But you can see there on the right hand side there, that shows you from the top to bottom which shaped objects you need to shoot in order to progress this key mechanism to the next stage. So I see on the first one there, which you can see from behind that little platform. The next one is on the right as you enter. That's the other thing with this, is remembering all the symbols when they're not in sight. The other thing I'm doing here, you'll notice, is I'm being fairly mobile and I'm repositioning in between shots at the symbols, and that's, I want the Vex to, if possible, move away from where I'm going to be standing next, so I get a reasonably free shot at the symbol. Yeah, unfortunately the ads are still nearby, so I'm going to move up to the top here. As I did there earlier, if you get a chance to get rid of the snipers, then it's a good idea too. It's a full symbol. The final set of 5 symbols after we finish this will be on the right hand side. So you can see there, top left, I've got 2 of the 3 access codes. And the way I think of it in my head is cube, cube, diamond, cube, diamond. I did use square, but for some reason square just didn't stick in my head as much as cube did, so... You can also see, after getting the invisibility procced, I'm then looking to stand fairly near ads so that I can regenerate it quickly before I then move on. Yeah, I'll do that a few times. My memory's awful, so quite a few times I'm going to be running back to where the code is visible. Right, after you've done that, you see that there's the access granted message on screen. The shield comes down and you will be faced with a whole new load of spawning enemies. They'll continue to spawn, so there's no kind of set limit. So what I'm looking to do here is gently make my way up the ramp to the entrance. It's the whole of this exotic quest is a balance between knowing when to push and probably more importantly knowing when to pull back to stay alive. But you can't be too passive here because, as I say, the ads are continuously spawning, so you can't kill a few and then withdraw because they will respawn. Right, inside here there are 2 Cyclops, one you can see immediately in front of you there, and there's one to the left. So I'm looking to get rid of the Cyclops first of all, and then deal with these. You'll see here how the volatile throw is so useful. There's the second Cyclops. Right, now after you get inside here, there's 2 groups that spawn either side of that kind of central section there, both of whom have 2 Minotaurs and a whole load of Vex Goblins. That's where I used I'm quite close to dying there, so that's why I used my dodge rather than the melee. Right, I think that's pretty much the initial wave dealt with. There's a whole load up on the top here now, and you've got to kill these before the code that you need to open this section will come up. As soon as that appears, you can see that there, just at the end on the left hand side, you will get this Minotaur. That's probably the most annoying Minotaur there, because otherwise standing here just at the edge of this platform is relatively safe. Nothing that's above you can see you to shoot down, but you will have that Minotaur that spawns on that platform, that central platform. So I'm just trying to make sure that there's not too many ads around, so that when I do start shooting, there's nothing that's going to be shooting back at me from this lower area. Now there's a spawn door at the bottom of the ramp here, so if I kill goblins at the top, there will be goblins that spawn in, and if you're visible they will start shooting at you, and then all the ads will know where you are, more or less then. So just be aware of that. So hopefully you can see this is the super barrier build. So yeah, the next group of 5 symbols is there on the right hand side. There you go, there's some of the goblins that have just respawned from the spawn door at the bottom of the slope. But if I don't kill any more now, then there shouldn't be any more turning up. They're now on that platform at the top. And they don't tend to come back down again unless they can see you. That's the noise you hear when you mess that up, and that's just me kind of feeling a bit impatient. Really, you should wait until you can see the symbols clearly rather than them being clumped up, because it's sometimes difficult to work out which one is actually in front, and you can hit the wrong one very easily by mistake in those circumstances. Here you can see that I didn't wait to shoot, or that my invisibility had gone, and now everything knows where I am. place. So I think that demonstrates the value of having the mods on your boots that regenerate health when you pick up an orb there. Yeah, it's been that long, I think I just forgot what the symbols were, so... Oh, I actually got them wrong, so... Another quick look. Right, that's opened up the next area, so there's another shield has just dropped, and there'll be a whole load of ads that will be starting to walk down another ramp. So my priorities here are first of all those snipers and anything that's wandering down. This is just demonstrating how good volatile rounds is for crowd control. You never know, next season we might get a LMG with was it destabilizing rounds, so we can get volatility going without actually having volatile rounds on the weapon itself. Right, this is your first kind of mini boss, so I'm going to stay well away. I'll use my super when I've cleared the ads around it, so I'm just hitting the mini boss rather than the stuff that's around it, and then try and use my LMG to finish it off. It will occasionally, towards the end of its health bar, I've seen it done, it'll actually jump down the length of that ramp, so it can actually come down quite a long way. Just be aware of that. We're into this final area of the first section. There's another wyvern here, another yellow bar wyvern. So again, not pushing too far, I'm just killing things as they emerge. Wyvern turns up, so back up a bit. You can hear there, I think that's the sound it makes when it's diving at you. That was me deliberately going up there to go and get that favour, so I got my grenade back. This is also an illustration about why you can't be too passive, because if you just wait, then enemies will just keep on spawning in, so at some point you do have to be somewhat aggressive. But with this last wyvern, once you've got, it must be about a quarter of the health, it'll retreat back to that area with all the teleports in, all the portals. There we go, end of the first section. So I'm just going to have a quick look around for ammo. I don't think there's any power bricks left here. There's a few ads in the next section which you can engage, but I prefer to play it safe for the flawless run through and just use invisibility. And I'm not showing any of the secrets. There's one of the secrets around here, but I'm not going to be showing that in here. There's plenty of other videos that can show you where to go for those. This is purely to get the solo flawless.
We'll run simulations here again and again until they too discover what the pyramids seek. Azurmir's knowledge gave us a head start. We must not squander it.
Right, the next section just coming up here is, it's not really a jumping section, it's a crawling section, but it's one of the areas where, until I kind of worked out the timing of the crawling, I was dying an awful lot here. So it's worth running through this a few times on the non-legendary version just to get used to the timing. The initial jump down here, you can see the disappearing platform. If you jump down there as soon as the disappearing platform appears, you should then be able to jump all the way down without having to worry about any of the platforms below. So kill these few ads around here, and then there's a series of a crawl space that you're at an angle. You can see it's kind of awkward because you're not flat, and there's some barriers that will appear and push you off, so it's a little bit like Transept in the King's Fall. Now the trick is with this is push up hard against this first and go to the second, push up hard against the second, so I'm kind of right up against it, and go to the third. This one is different. You see the second light section ahead? That's what you're aiming for. So you're moving as fast as possible to that second area of light, and then stopping. And you can see just in front of you there is where the next one will appear. So now go kind of hard up against that, and then you can go to the next one that comes out, and then make your way through to the end, and then you're out of it. You notice I had my submachine gun equipped there. As I said earlier, that's the lightweight submachine gun, so that gives me additional mobility, so that speeds me up. So for the next section, there's lots of arc shields, so I'm going to swap to my Ichthys here, my arc SMG. Like I say, this is my ad clear weapon, so it's Volt Shot, threat detector, but to be honest, any good arc ad clear weapon will do here. There's a rally banner just up ahead, so you can refill. So you've got these, a few harpies, 5 harpies here in front of you to kill. And then once you've killed the 5th one, then you'll see the terrain changes slightly. I head in here so that nothing can get behind me. Kind of hide in here. And now, this actually almost becomes trivial, this. I know this is quite difficult normally, but if you're using this Super Mario build, then effectively all you're doing is bouncing on these, they're already damaged and finishable heads. They're weakened when they come over. So literally you're just jumping up, bouncing down on the heads. They will congregate around where they last saw you. You pick up the little fragments and you're good. So you've got to pick up 8 and then 10 and then 10 and then 12 and then hide in this little area here until the time reaches 0. So there's 2 add phases and then a boss damage phase. So identical with the second damage phase I had over here. I've got to collect 10 data. Yeah, it's just 10 data. I'm doing exactly the same. You'll notice again they all just congregate around me. So bounce up, down, grab the data, head into the middle. I'm staying out as long because I collected those quite quickly, and I just want to make sure that I'm going in reasonably late so that the wyverns don't catch me unawares. So for the damage phase, rather than stay out or go into this little trench, I looked up here while I was doing a legend run and thought, I wonder if this is out of bounds, and it's not. So this is where I do all the damage against the mini boss from. So I'll basically just look out from side to side and with Wither Horde just do chunk damage. What I'm trying to do here is make sure that the enemies are all looking to one side or the other, so it's reasonably easy to stick my head out there and get a Wither Horde shot on the Hydra there. So as you can see, I am absolutely safe back here. Nothing comes up here. And this isn't something I've seen anybody else do. I have watched some guide videos from other people when I was preparing for this, but none of them that I saw were suggesting you come up here. So as I say, this plus Wither Horde makes this very, very easy. So you see there's a marker on the health bar when he gets to half health. There's a second phase of adds, 2 rounds of adds and then a follow-up damage phase. So once he's back in the cage here, I will head down, and this is where the Ichthos submachine gun shines. Yeah, I do find it's easier to... this is where I was doing damage to the boss from before, in this kind of trench here. For this section you just need to kill most of the harpies of it. I think it's either the penultimate harpy or with maybe 3 to go. You can see the terrain changes again, so I'm heading back over to my starting spot and then Super Mario time again. I think I do illustrate this time around, you shouldn't stay in one spot. Even if you're invisible, the adds will still fire to where they last saw you. So if you hang around in one spot too much, then eventually everything will start congregating on you, and you just need to, there we go, we're kind of here. So I just need to kind of move out of the way, find an orb. May have cut that one a little fine if I'm honest. So I need to collect 12 here, again, rinse and repeat. I'm just looking for where, because I know I need to collect 12, I'm looking for where the greatest concentration of those, the goblins, the headless goblins are, so I can collect these as quickly as possible. So it definitely gets me over the line. Very bit last minute, but there you go. I thought that was going to be a lot more difficult than it would be, but say I think that using the invisible hunter with setup I've got works really well there. The difference between the first and the second boss damage phases, you will have some minotaurs down there with torch hammers. So that's where it's a little bit more important to try and get them all looking in the same direction, so you can then stick your head out of the other side here. But it's almost impossible to get that consistent, so a lot of the time I will find myself with things firing at both sides. I think here, because I didn't stick my head out far enough, the ads on the right hand side from where I'm looking haven't, realised I was on the left hand side and aren't shooting me there. So you can still use invisibility if you need to for safety, but as I say, this is a very safe way of doing this. Whereas the only potential issue is running out with the horde ammo, in which case, again, go invisible. There's probably some special weapon bricks down there, special ammo bricks that you can go and pick up, and there are also plenty of ads down there, so you can regenerate your invisibility, your smoke grenade. So there we go, end of the second encounter, corrupted data management all done. So this is the point at which I will swap to my rocket launcher and change my loadout. I'm moving back to funnel web again for the lightweight frame bonus, swapping to my red herring, which has lasting impression and a tracking module on it. It's one that I crafted back in Witch Queen. Lasting impression's got a 25% damage bonus, which is quite useful, but it does have a delayed explosion. I think it's about 4 seconds after impact, so it's possible, I mean, probably for DPS that explosive light would be better, but the tracking module is quite useful. You can see here, there's a wyvern that's moving about a little bit, and having tracking module just gives you a little bit of additional security in hitting things. So yeah, just showing you the lasting impression tracking module. If there's a I don't think there is, but if there is a rocket launcher that's got a tracking module and explosive light, that would probably be a better one to use, because you would get better DPS from that. This looks like a long jump, but you can get down there with a stand. You don't need stompies to get down here. And then just around the corner here, there's another crawling section. This is easier to get through than the first one, even from scratch. I think I got through this pretty much first time. So you can see there's ones at head height and ones at kind of crawling height. You just want to get up against, there's only two that you need to worry about, and if you just crawl all the way forward here until you reach the next one, stop, and then sprint ahead and you're there. That's all you need to do. Right, this section below, don't worry about the little platform, the little sections that come in and out. You can jump right down to the bottom with a normal triple jump. So no need to worry about hitting or missing those retractable sections there. And then just jump round. And we're almost at the boss. Again, I've got to swap back to my SMG for the additional mobility. You will need to jump, so make sure you jump at the bottom of the slide here as you launch to get that initial kind of impetus, and then 2 more jumps and you'll be down there. And that'll work with Titan and with Warlock as well. Right, so I am going to swap here to the Snorri. That is, I mean, there's a rally banner on the other side, but that is to make sure that I'm going to be doing one more swap when I get past the first phase. That's to make sure that I am dropping special ammo when I'm killing ads. If I didn't have a special weapon equipped, then I wouldn't be dropping a special. It's quite a nice one. That it's got reservoir burst, so it's good for killing groups of ads, and again, it's void, so it fits into the rest of the void kit. So this just shows you the 3 arenas that you'll be fighting Brakion in, each in turn. Right, so the way I do this, I do a little bit of initial burst damage, Brakion spawns, wait until the invulnerability shield has gone, use my super, single shot of the rocket, invisible, and then I go and hide in the little cubby hole, which is, it's on the left as you look from spawn. So under here, you're not 100% safe, but you are pretty safe under here. Things can still hit you, particularly the Hydra. No, sorry, not the Hydra, the Wyvern, and the torch cannon. You've obviously got a side wall there, and you've got walls behind you, which a torch cannon, kind of with the arced shot that it has, can still hit you. So Brakion moves around the 3 corners of the triangle here of the arena. He's now above me. That makes that little barrier in front of me appear. That's quite good, because if there's a wyvern out there, that kind of forces the wyvern to come to you. And then when that disappears, that means that Brakion is just about to appear at that far end. So rocket shot, and then I will start with Wish Ender. If you drop back off that step and then push right up hard against it, then you basically head glitch Brakion, so he can't hit you, but you can hit his head. And then I am gradually whittling his health down. Now, what I'll do here, it's unusual a couple of times in this run that the Wyvern goes right in front of you. You could see there, you can, if you crouch, you can be pretty safe from all incoming damage that's directly fired at you. Nothing will be able to hit you, whereas here, you see I was just hit by one of the Wyvern shots. So at this stage I'll make a calculation. If I can start seeing heavy bricks in front of me, I'll continue using the rocket launcher. If I can't, then for the remainder of the first damage phase I will just be using Wish Ender and trying to get as many headshots as possible. It takes a long time, but as I say, in here you are pretty safe. Again, the upside of using this as your hidey hole is that ads will tend to congregate in front of you, which means that grenades, or as I've just done there, a reservoir burst shot from a fusion rifle can clear out a whole crowd. Okay, that's Brakion moving to what would be, from where I'm looking at, the right hand apex of the triangle. And if you aim, you can see kind of the little L shape towards the, you can see where the reticle is as well. If when you're standing here, you aim there, that's pretty much exactly where Brakion will spawn in. So now I'm just working down, you can see the three parts of the boss encounter are marked by the three markers on the health bar. Right, I think that's it. I can't see any, don't think I can see any power on the brick, so I'm now just going to whittle the rest of the health bar down to the 2/3 marker, just using Wish Ender. Again, for this, if you haven't got Wish Ender, while it's really useful, then any heavy hitting primary will do. So again, a bow with explosive head will probably do just as well there. It'll take a little longer, but you'll still be safe inside here. You'll just have to have, and there's no timer, so you just have to have a bit of patience. So I'm just lining up my reticle with that L shape at the edge of that little barrier there. Is get the first shot in to get his attention and then drop back so your head glitching. Don't be tempted to stay up there and tough it out, because a couple of shots from the sniper rifle, he will kill you. Right, there we go. You can see he's moving to the next platform. So now I'm swapping to with a horde, and because it's arc shielded enemies there, I've got my Echelon. Now you could get out at the front, but it's quite difficult, so it's much easier to jump out of the back end of that little tunnel, head out that way. I'm collecting ammo as I go. Now this is where you used to be able to glitch, you used to be able to fire through that barrier and whittle his health down without him firing back. You can't do that anymore, so you're going to have to do this legit. Now this is probably the part of the whole of the exotic quest that this is where I wiped the most times. So what we've got to do here is, first of all, I mean the object is to get rid of that Hydra, but before we even go near the Hydra, I'm going to get rid of the Wyverns because they are by far the worst things here. They're orange bars, so they're reasonably tough, but as you can see, they also, even when you're invisible, they know where you are and they can dive at you like that. If they dive at you, and this is something that I kind of learnt as an instinct after many failures, don't run away, don't run towards them, you run at 90 degree angles, you're running perpendicularly so that you're getting as far away from the landing point as possible. So here, yeah, I'm just using with a horde. So you can see it's much the same as in the first encounter where I'm using my invisibility. I'm waiting until my invisibility is regenerated before I will then make a shot, so I know I can get away. So with both of the Wyverns down there, if you get one with a horde shot, it will be left with probably about 5% health, so I will use, at that point I will use the grenade as well. Then after the Hydra has been killed, there's two Cyclops that appear, so one with a horde shot on each will deal with them. Again, you'll notice that I'm running into contact with the harpies here, purely to get, because that gets that the Graviton Forfeit buff up. Now once the Hydra's dead, the codes will start showing, or the symbols will start showing on that central key. The code will be in one of these two pits. Each time it's going to be five symbols. So I've got rid of most of the really dangerous stuff here, the Wyverns and the Cyclopses, but I'm still going to be shooting and repositioning because Brakion sniper rifle is still quite deadly. 2 shots and you're done. And if you stay in one position for too long, then you'll take fire from the harpy void beams from all directions. So you might as well reposition. Everything will fire at where they last saw you. So I'm just going to move from side to side, you can see here. And then use the super. See, better discretion is better part of valor there. You always want to make sure that if your shield's been removed, you want to make sure you're in cover. Don't be tempted to try and tough it out, because you will lose that fight. Now, because I'm using a lasting impressions rocket launcher, I'm stopping kind of about 4 seconds out, because when the shield goes back up, Brakion becomes invulnerable to damage again. So we're just rinsing and repeating now, so it's the same process of using my invisibilities I've had all along, trying to get rid of the Wyverns first of all, killing that Hydra. That brings up the decoder in the middle of the arena here. Finding out what the code is. See, that's where I try to brazen it out. That was a mistake, but thankfully that didn't one-shot me, because that I'm pretty sure I've been one-shot by those attacks in the past. there is plenty of cover here that you can jump over. That means it'll take a little bit of a while for the wyverns to path their way to you. The other way to make sure, just to keep an eye on whether you've killed something, is in the feed on the right hand side. You'll get 10 glimmer for each wyvern kill. So when you see that 10 glimmer symbol come up, you know you've done that. So you can see this is very much a rinse and repeat. I don't think there's a pattern to which side the symbols appear on. It could be alternate, but I'm not sure it always is on alternate sides. That's where I've just run a little low on with the horde ammo, so I'm just using my SMG on a harpy for a change to try and generate some special ammo. There we go. Unfortunately, if I'd have waited a little bit longer, I would have had my super up for this, but that's possibly the difference. I think is I go to a 4th damage here, but not 4th damage phase here in the second part of the boss fight, and I think that's possibly also. I think that was a missed rocket there as well. But he's left with the tiniest bit of health before that second health bar check. So there's any one of a number of things I could have done a little bit differently that would have got me just over the line in 3 damage phases rather than 4. There we go, you can see my instincts kicked in again there, so as soon as he was jumping towards me I wasn't running backwards, I was running sideways. See, that is normally what happens to me, is I'll get physicsed into a wall and die, so I think this is probably the point at which I thought maybe the RNG gods were with me on this run. That's true, I probably could have swapped and done, and I've got the catalyst on with the Hall. I probably could have swapped weapons and rather than manually reloading. But sometimes I have difficulty, I don't know, other people may feel the same way, in working out what weapon I have equipped when I'm invisible. So this is why I've kept it pretty much in hand for the whole of this part of the run. At least the initial part, until I want to enter the code. There's no time pressure with entering the code. If you're unable to shoot and enter one particular symbol, then you can just hold off, try again. As long as you're not shooting the wrong symbol, you're fine. Okay, if you like me. It's well worth checking occasionally just to make sure that if you're not sure whether you've entered a symbol correctly or not, then take the time, go and have a look. It's probably still more time efficient than continuing and getting it wrong. There's the other thing which you probably already noticed is that you can keep on shooting a symbol for, you know, maybe a second or so after it disappears, and activate it. You can see I was a little worried there. I used the dodge invisibility just for speed. You can see he's got a tiny bit of, which is very annoying. If I'd have managed to get a super on him before that second damage phase, I probably would have pushed him to the final phase of the fight. But anyway, we've got to do this one more time. Probably useful just to demonstrate one more time what to do, and that because there's no time pressure, really it's just maintaining your concentration. As long as you can do that, you should be fine. And go nice simple code this time for cubes and a diamond. Now you can see I'm being pretty cautious, so I'm waiting each time, even if I've got a shot at a symbol, I'm waiting until my melee's fully recharged before I then fire and break cover. Okay, should just be a single shot now. So when you've pushed him over the edge again, he will go invulnerable. He'll move to the final platform, and this array of enemies will spawn at the top. But you can go invisible and just jump straight past them. Now there's no intermission here, you're straight into the fight in this final area. So the area that I do my damage from is behind, as you come in, this kind of Vex Milk waterfall. Behind you to the right there's this kind of wall behind it which you can stand on, which gives you a bit more kind of side to side movement. Now you can do it with Wither Horde if you don't have Wishender. If you don't have Wishender, Shattered Throne, but just go into Shattered Throne and get it, because it is quite good for niche things like this. I haven't tried Revision Zero. Revision Zero also has an intrinsic piercing perk, so it could be something else that you use. The only thing you're going to face coming here is these Minotaurs. They don't even have torch cannons. They basically will fire those beam rifles at you. And unusually for this, Brakion's not normally a lot more mobile in this final phase of the boss fight, but I don't know whether it was because I was visible and then went invisible in front of him, but he's basically, Brakion is just firing, I think, where I last was visible. So that could be a trick for this, but yeah, I'm basically just using the ability of Wishender to fire, using its piercing shots, fire through this waterfall, which if anything tries to return fire is solid. So this is a pretty safe place. If you stand on here, then Brakion can do that kind of that purple fire, he can fire that at you, but if he does that you just basically move along the wall until you're outside the fire and then you can move back again. So this is a pretty safe place to do your damage from. As I say, otherwise I would be using my invisibility. If I didn't have Wishender, I'd probably keep the Wither Horde on, and I would be going invisible, jumping up, going invisible, so I wasn't taking any risks of falling off the sides with a dodge, stepping out, taking my shot, going back in and waiting for my melee to regenerate, which would be much slower but still pretty safe. So you can see I just whittle him down here till he's dead, and we're done. So that's it. That is your, hopefully that will help you with your Avalon Legends solo flawless clear. As ever, flawless does not mean without fault. I've made plenty of mistakes in there, but it does mean that, you know, if you're doing it this way, you should do it in a fairly safe way. Hopefully it won't take you as many run-throughs as I had to do to get here. You can see here that's the first time I've done this, so I've got the Flawless and the Flawless Legend, and because that was my third run through, I've also finished off getting all the catalysts for Excalibur as well. So there we go. I hope that's been helpful. Thank you for watching, and may all your drops be God rolls.